your weekend update from the abandoned bungalow here. Shockingly, Laura has once again taken it upon herself to tackle something traditionally labeled a man's job. But it's 2025, and gender roles are about as outdated as dial-up internet. Now, did Laura have any prior chainsaw experience? Of course not. Did she consult YouTube tutorials or even glance at the manual? Don't be silly. Who has time for helpful information when you have blind optimism? Did she manage to use it? Somehow, yes. Did she injure herself? Not today, which frankly feels like a win. And yes, she wore PPE, because nothing says prepared quite like a pair of safety goggles and sheer willpower. Was she swift and majestic like an eagle? Maybe not. Perhaps more like a confused pigeon that wandered into a supermarket. But credit where it's due, Laura did finish the job, and I have to admit, her can-do attitude is kind of inspiring. There was a tense moment when she considered giving up, but then she remembered determination usually has a positive outcome. And just like her t-shirt states, do what makes you happy. Even if this means stealing your dad's chainsaw. Ah, here we have the majestic goat munching on a crunchy apple. Gary, the mischievous goat, has been quite the troublemaker lately, but he has proven his worth by gobbling up all the brambles at the abandoned bungalow alongside with his brother Brian. Gary always seems to have a bone to pick with Brian, especially when it comes to food. Laura, the no-nonsense owner, attempts to keep the peace, but Gary just cannot seem to resist being a total twat. Maybe it's the thrill of clearing out the abandoned bungalow, who knows? But one thing is for sure, Gary's antics never fail to entertain. Gary may have overheard Laura telling Brian to not worry, and told him, if he keeps being unkind to you, I will not give him any more treats. Gary promises to do better, as he is learning Laura does mean what she says. Because 3 weeks ago she said she is going to clear this garden that's been left to go wild for the past 16 years. With no experience, whilst working full-time, with the help of 2 small pygmy goats and a few retired pensioners. But 3 weekends on, and she's only gone and done it. Just another day at the abandoned bungalow, where plans constantly change and Laura has a very long to-do list which shockingly still exists entirely in her head. Laura lives by the motto, don't take life too seriously, especially when armed with power tools you've never used. She started the day by staring at an outdoor chimney and wondering how she is going to squeeze a hole digger through this gap tomorrow, when her spatial awareness is the same as a bull in a china shop. I think she is mostly just excited to play with the new hammer drill, because nothing says experienced professional like enthusiastic guesswork. However, I have to applaud her. She is now a PPE queen, and proudly owns a hard hat. As for the words written on the front, let's just say, we'll let her Aussie Kiwi past take the blame for her crude language. Eventually, her fancy drill gets put aside and she returns to her soulmate, the trusty sledgehammer. Because, when in doubt, smash it out. As the sun begins to set on this glorious chaos, Laura remembers a small detail. A digger is arriving in the morning. But don't worry. She is totally confident she can operate heavy machinery on 3 hours of sleep and a cup of instant coffee. I am sure you are as intrigued as me to see this feisty redhead drive a digger, so I'll keep you informed tomorrow. It's digger day here at the abandoned bungalow, and Laura, if you don't know by now, spontaneously bought this derelict property at auction 5 weeks ago, because clearly, what better way to spice up life than purchasing a house that's one gust of wind away from becoming a pile of vintage rubble? Today's milestone heavy machinery. Laura, who has only recently mastered the arts of the sledgehammer, the chainsaw, and even power tools, has decided she was more than adequate to operate a digger. Now, I wouldn't say she took to it like a duck to water, but within 10 minutes of erratic experimenting with buttons, levers, and handles, she had it down. Pulling up years of ivy roots was like watching a knife through butter. I mean, if butter were a garden buried under decades of neglect and the knife came in 2-ton steel buckets, years of homemade topsoil deeply covered newly found pathways, which lead to unknown locations, sadly not to Narnia, probably just to the concrete ponds, which did alter Laura's plans for the day slightly. But this did not faze her. Instead, she played claw grab like she was at the arcade, but with concrete and rocks, not teddy bears. Sure, the bungalow may have caught the odd love tap from the bucket, but by the end of the day, Laura moved with all the grace of a swan landing. She did not even let a little bit of rain dampen her spirits. 8 bone-rattling hours later, the digger got collected and she got an actual compliment from the professional operator, which she is now acting like she's been awarded an Oscar. So, to bring herself back down to earth, she finished the day by sitting on the roof, eating a Snickers bar, whilst feeling very proud of herself, like she just conquered Rome. Laura and her abandoned bungalow have become a little popular recently. Turns out, nothing attracts a crowd like a derelict house being renovated by a reckless redhead with a sledgehammer addiction. Either way, the happiness to share this journey with you shows on her face. I even think the fact she was playing structural Jenga with her life yesterday has become a distant memory, blissfully buried beneath layers of plaster dust and questionable decisions. But let me make one thing clear. While Laura may be enthusiastically unhinged and impeccably impatient, she is not a rule breaker, and of course, she brought in a structural engineer to confirm which walls were actually holding the house up before she took her beloved sledgehammer to them. As nothing quite says responsible adult like demolition after receiving the professional nod of approval. As many of you know, work only happens at the abandoned bungalow on weekends because, unfortunately, being an optimistic DIY goddess will not fund this little project. Weeknights are now reserved for what we are generously calling project managing. This involves Laura trying to discover the marks she scribbled on the back of her hand with a Sharpie mid-demolition. She even took a photo, which is about as useful as a chocolate fireguard. After a quick game of Scrabble to recreate her to-do list, she begins. Starting with planning permission, she had told herself to stay focused. But, would you believe it, she noticed a few cute flowers out the window, and well, here we are. And yet, somehow, she always manages to pull it back and actually finishes the half-started tasks. I mean, you've heard the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? Laura is definitely the tortoise here. If the tortoise thought juggling chainsaws counted as self-care and had the same attention span of a moth at a rave, Laura thought she struck gold when she found a hidden safe in the abandoned bungalow. Finally, maybe one of the 43 mystery keys actually has a purpose. There she was, just casually peeling back the kitchen plasterboard, vibing to Missy Elliott and reminiscing about her glory days blasting that same CD in her beloved Corsa. Probably parked in a McDonald's car park, chicken nuggets in hand, with zero regrets. Never did she imagine she would be here, owning a derelict house. She finds this mysterious, boxed-in area and thinks it must be treasure, maybe a stash of cash or a diary full of secrets. After chipping away all cool and composed for like 1 minute, patience went out the window and the hammer came out in force. In her head, this was the moment. Drumroll, please. Nothing. Absolutely, soul-crushingly nothing. But instead of crying into her dust mask, Laura just shrugged like a true renovation warrior and said, "Next wall then. And maybe this is the real treasure." the chaotic magic she is creating in this crumbling bungalow. In just 6 short weekends, even the skeptical tradesmen who once muttered, "Big project," are now saying, "Yes, more than doable." So perhaps this leap of faith did not land Laura in a pile of diamonds. But maybe it landed her right where she is supposed to be, knee-deep in plaster dust, chasing her dreams with a Missy Elliott soundtrack playing